Wow. Who could have imagined that one showcase of a mobile trailer at E3 2019 could cause such a backlash? Oh wait, I did! Why were they showing a mobile trailer at E3 in the first place? Who does that? Anyway, here we are. Many people are outright furious about the latest entry in the Commander Keen series because A, it obviously looks nothing like the original, and B, that gameplay trailer was... ugh. I had been looking for a good excuse to revisit and replay all the games from this classic series, and this seemed like as good of an opportunity as any to jump back in there. So, let's do it. How does Commander Keen hold up today? When you hear the names Tom Hall, John Carmack, and John Romero, you tend to think of Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, and id Software in general, right? Well, there's another title prior to all that which you may want to take note of, especially if the history of 2D platformers is an important one to you. Thanks to John Carmack, PC games, for the first time ever, were able to replicate the side-scrolling platformers you'd see on the NES in the early 90s through a technique called adaptive tile refresh. This is what allowed the backgrounds and platforms to move so seamlessly with the player, and led to a huge evolution for action and platforming games. So what is Commander Keen about? Well, they're episodic games, as you'll see when we talk about the first 3 episodes here, but the plot focuses around a boy genius named Billy Blaze. He manages to build a spaceship out of old soup cans, rubber cement, and plastic tubing, as well as other random household objects. Now we'll take this opportunity to begin with Episode 1, Marooned on Mars. One day, when his parents are out, of course, Billy takes his ship to visit and explore Mars. But oh no! An alien race known as the Vorticons arrives, and steals 4 parts from his ship, scattered about different outposts. It's up to Billy to take the parts back from the Vorticons and arrive home safely before his parents get back. Fun stuff. If you've never played a 2D platformer game on MS-DOS before, you may find the controls of this game to be a little on the sluggish side, with Keen's response time feeling a little delayed with your button presses. Now, keep in mind, there were still many technical limitations at the time, and people like Carmack were only just starting to scratch the surface of what could be accomplished. With that said, I still find it to be pretty fluid, all things considered, especially if we're comparing it to the other choppier DOS games at the time, to which there was no real comparison. People playing this for the first time will likely groan at these controls a bit, but will also adjust after a few minutes. Billy can jump, fire his ray gun, hit an action button for switches, and, as you get farther into the game, use a pogo stick for higher jumps. The button placement is a little odd, particularly having to hit both Control and Alt on the keyboard simultaneously in order to fire the ray gun. Luckily, the controls are adjustable, so it's not a major issue. You have both your regular stages and a world map section to go from one stage to the other. This adds a sense of freedom in that you're not actually required to play and beat every single stage in order to finish the episode, just the ones that contain the ship parts. The levels themselves are also quite large, to the point where you can explore all kinds of areas for items and ammo before reaching the end. The first 3 episodes also allow you to save your game on the world map in between levels. In-level saving wouldn't become a thing until episode 4, which we'll cover at a later time. After you get past the basics of the controls, I'd say the first game has a good difficulty balance to it, while not being too unfair or unforgiving, but still keeping you on your toes. The team also found ways to make each level feel just different enough from the others that you never got bored of it or felt like it had overstayed its welcome. Even the enemies, while not too varied, provided different kinds of challenges throughout each stage, to the point where it would never feel like the exact same experience each time. Enemy movement was also unpredictable, adding even further to the chaos. The first episode was originally released as a shareware title, meaning just about everyone and their grandmother had access to it back in the day. The same was not true for episodes 2 and 3, which actually went for $15 apiece. You'd think that 3 episodes using the same gameplay engine would get repetitive, or not provide enough variety to make each title memorable. I am both happy and horrified to say I was wrong. Very, very wrong. What am I talking about? Well, the games did receive some slight tweaks as well as new scenery and new story plots, but that's not the point here. The point is that these 2 episodes are hard! Let's begin with episode 2, just to keep things in order. Following the first episode's conclusion and the revelation that the Vorticon mothership is close by, Billy traverses the mothership in order to stop the Vorticons from taking over all the major cities of the world and save Earth in the process. Just like in Episode 1, you are only required to progress through specific levels in order to save each city of Earth. Though being the sadist that I am, I still played and managed to get through every single stage in the game. Woo! They start throwing all kinds of new challenges at you, with a completely new palette of enemies to deal with. There's one new type, called the Scrub, which walks along walls throughout the stages. You quickly learn that you'll have to take advantage of these in order to not only reach certain heights, but actually complete the levels themselves. The Vorticon warrior enemies were also particularly frustrating and left me cursing at my screen constantly. The stages themselves felt much more cramped this time around, with less room for exploration. That said, the challenge was ramped up by 1,000 and left me having to restart levels many times. Although it was far more frustrating than the first, that's kind of what I liked about it at the same time. Finishing this one left me feeling pretty accomplished, all things considered. After saving all 8 cities and completing Episode 2, we learned that the Vorticons were actually being mind-controlled by a mysterious being known as the Grand Intellect. Cue Episode 3, where Commander Keen goes straight to the Vorticons' home planet, Vorticon 6, to track down the Grand Intellect and put a stop to things, once and for all.
Once and for all!
I'm not even going to touch on how strange it is that you learned the Vorticons were being mind-controlled and yet still proceed to kill more of them here. In fact, I'm pretty sure Keen is actually murdering entire families in some of these stages. I'll just leave you with that disturbing thought for a minute. Items, environments, and enemies are once again changed up. Remember when I said that Episode 2 was harder and much more frustrating to beat? Well, the developers heard our cries, by making Episode 3 even harder at that. Yes, that's right. This is Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels kind of hard. Now, before I delve into just what drove me into countless rage fits, I'm going to get this fact out of the way. It is technically possible to finish the game by only completing 2 stages and the final fight at the end. With that said, I could never just idly stand by knowing there were levels in the game to be conquered. Yes, I completed all of them without any kind of cheating involved. These are my stories. For starters, there's another new type of enemy called the Vorta Ninja. They take 4 shots of your ray gun to kill and can move extremely fast. It doesn't help that they tend to appear without much prior warning. You could compare these things to the cyber demons in the original Doom games for scale. On top of that, the level design, particularly in the final few stages, is straight up bonkers, putting you in situations where one small misstep will cost you, and as said before, there is no in-level saving to aid you. You either succeed, or you don't. Due to the random nature of the enemy's movements, some parts are completely left up to chance, like this scenario, where I have to make an already difficult jump with my pogo stick, and take out these 2 meep enemies while avoiding their blasts. Because of course they can shoot through the walls. And then we have this stage. Oh my god, this stage. You were literally surrounded by Vorta ninjas the entire time, many of which there's no way to kill, being forced to use shield power-ups just to run through some of them. It actually reminds me of Doom 2, where you also had to get a shield power-up in order to run through a room full of cyber demons. I wonder if this was the inspiration behind that scenario. I'll have to invite Cormac over for some coffee sometime to find out. This section here takes some of the most pinpoint precision of the entire trilogy. Here, you have to jump from this moving platform at just the right second in order to touch the shield power-up and not get killed by the 2 Vorta ninjas. Only thing is, their movement is erratic, and timing this jump correctly will be partly determined by luck. I wasn't even sure this was possible at first, but eventually learned how to wait until just the right second and move on. Phew. The final stage brings us to the Grand Intellect, and that turns out to be Mortimer McMire. Wait, who? Okay, so the game goes on to explain that Mortimer is another boy genius like Billy, except that he has an IQ of 315, 1 point higher than Billy's IQ of 314, something that he always held over Billy. His plan to mind control the Vorticons and take over the Earth is simply due to finding the rest of the humans to be unintelligent and not worth keeping alive. He definitely looks like an evil version of Keen as well. So it's off to face the Mangling Machine, a giant robot piloted by Mortimer with little weak spots scattered around its head and body. It's not too difficult, but it definitely takes a few tries to really get the hang of. After the fight, we finally reach the ending, where Keen is given an award by the remaining Vorticons, aka the ones you haven't killed explicitly, and the Earth is safe once again, for now. Okay, so I took some time to gather all my thoughts, changed my shirt, got a coffee, reevaluated all my life's choices. So anyway, here are my thoughts on the Invasion of the Vorticons trilogy. From a technological and historical standpoint, this game is an incredible part of history. This game managed to capture the look and feel, and even to a degree the atmosphere, of the classic NES platformers that we all love to play, while still being unique enough in its own right. The adaptive tile refresh was a real leap for programming and paved the way for so many other projects from not just Carmack and crew, but everyone who took note of it. Promoting the first episode as a shareware title was also a brilliant idea for marketing things, as it just made you want to pay for and play the other 2 episodes that much more. Even with the frustrations of the later episodes and levels, I couldn't help but feel moments of sheer joy every time that I conquered a stage and was able to move on to the next one. With all of that said, and for all the credit I will always give this series, I fully admit that this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. For anyone who started gaming after the 90s, this game is likely going to look and feel pretty archaic to them, with controls that won't seem very responsive, especially for those who are now used to the more precise platformers that we see today. Spoiled kids. I want to make it clear, I would not blame anyone for feeling this way about the series, even if I happen to strongly disagree in this case. For those gamers, I actually recommend sticking around, however, as I think that many will find the later episodes, that's episodes 4 to 6, will be much more up their alley, as they are widely considered to be the best in the series. Why is that? Well, you'll just have to stay tuned for the rest of my video series, or just Google it while you're waiting. Either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again when I put up part 2. Take care.